Okay, put your head on the pillow, close your eyes, and I'll tell you a story. This is the tale of a tiny snail and a great big grey-blue humpback whale. This is a rock as black as soot, and this is a snail with an itchy foot. The sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock, and as she gazed she sniffed and sighed. The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. These are the other snails in the flock, who all stuck tight to the smooth black rock, and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wriggle, sit still, stay put." The tiny sea snail sighed and sniffed, then cried, "I've got it, I'll hitch a lift." And this is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail that looped and curled and said, "Lift wanted, around the world." This is the whale who came one night when the tide was high and the stars were bright, a humpback whale immensely long, and he sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tale of the humpback whale. He held it out to the starlit sea, and he said to the snail, "Come sail with me." This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far-off lands with fiery mountains and golden sands. These are the waves that arched and crashed and foamed and frolicked and sprayed and splashed the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. These are the caves beneath the waves, where stripy fish with feathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam around the whale and the snail on his tail. This is the sky, so vast and high, sometimes sunny, blue and warm, sometimes filled with a thunderstorm, with zigzag lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And she gazed at the sky, the sea and the land and the waves and the caves and the golden sands, and she gazed and gazed, amazed by it all, and she said to the whale, "I feel so small." But then came the day the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar and making him swim too close to the shore. And this is the tide slipping away. This is the whale lying beached in a bay. "Quick, off the sand, back to sea," cried the snail. "Can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small. Then, "I've got it," she cried, and started to crawl. "I must not fail," said the tiny snail. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children in from their play. This is the teacher holding the chalk and telling the class, "Sit straight, don't talk." This is a board as black as soot, and this is a snail with an itchy foot. "A snail, a snail!" The teacher turns pale. "Look," say the children, "it's leaving a trail." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail saying, "Save the whale." These are the children running from school, fetching the fireman, digging a pool, squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. This is the tide coming into the bay, and these are the villagers shouting hooray as the whale and the snail travel safely away. Back to the dock and the flock on the rock, who said, "How time's flown, and haven't you grown?" And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves, and of how a snail, so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery trail, saved the life of a humpback whale. Then the humpback whale held out its tail, and on crawled snail after snail after snail, and they sang to the sea as they all set sail on the tail of a grey-blue humpback whale. Once upon a time a boy called Charlie Cook curled up in a cosy chair to read his favourite book about a leaky pirate ship that very nearly sank, and a pirate chief who got the blame and had to walk the plank. The chief swam to an island and went digging with his hook. At last he found a treasure chest, Inside it was a book about a girl called Goldilocks and 3 indignant bears who said, "Who's had our porridge? Who's been sitting on our chairs?" They went into the bedroom and Baby Bear said, "Look, she's in my bed, and what is more, she's got my favourite book." About Sir Percy Pilkington, a bold and fearless knight, who told the dragon, "Wait, I'm not quite ready for a fight. You must hear this one first." And then his armour clanked and shook as he read aloud a joke he'd found inside his favourite book. About Rowena Redalot, a very well-read frog, who hopped into a lily pad and hopped onto a log. Then she hopped into the library that stood beside the brook and went, "Read it, read it, read it," as she hopped onto a book. About a tree that's full of birds. Each bird had built a nest, and they had a competition to decide which one was best. They asked an owl to judge it, and the winner was a rook, whose nest was lined with pages from his very favourite book. About a hungry crocodile who got fed up with fish, and went on land to try to find some other kind of dish. He crawled into a bookshop, and there grew even greedier while munching on page 90 of a large encyclopedia. About a wicked jewel thief who stole the king's best crown, but then got stuck behind some sheep which slowed his car right down. The king called 999, and soon the cops had caught the crook, and they threw him into prison, where he read his favourite book. About a girl who saw a flying saucer in the sky. Some small green men were in it, and they waved as they flew by. She tugged her mother's sleeve and said, "Look, Mum, what I've just seen." But her mum said, "Shh, I'm trying to read my favourite magazine." About the biggest birthday cake the world had ever seen. A team of royal cake bakers had made it for the Queen. The cake was so delicious that a famous spaceman took a slice of it to Jupiter. He also took a book about a ghost who glided around the castle every night, carrying her head and giving everyone a fright. She kept it up till morning, then she found a shady nook, popped her head back on again to read her favourite book. About a cosy armchair and a boy called Charlie Cook.